Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's workshop, which is on financial well-being and money matters. My name is Danny Haig, and I will be running today's session. But we have some early birds in the house, which I am always very appreciative of. But we'll just have to wait a couple more minutes before. Oh, here we go. People are starting to join in thick and fast now, which is fantastic. But I hope you've all had a wonderful day so far. And one thing I will say, I'm not sure if anybody has been to one of my workshops before, but I love an interactive workshop. So please do pull up the chat box and say a quick hello, because I don't think we have camera access or microphone access, but we can talk through the chat, and we're going to have some polls and things like that. So I actually don't have access to the chat function, so I can't reply to you. So I'm really going to rely upon you guys to get that chat going. So maybe say a little hello, so I know that people are actually there at the end of those little round bubbles that I can see in front of me. That would be fantastic. So for those of you who've just joined, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today for what I believe is one of the best investments of 45 minutes you can make when it comes to finances. It's such a different topic, and most people will have never spoken about finances the way that we are going to talk about them today. But I'm going to leave it just one more minute for some more people to join, because we had more people signed up, and I don't want anyone to miss anything. So in the meantime, please do pull up the chat function and say a quick hello so that I know that you're there. Maybe you can't access it. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm flogging a dead horse here. But hopefully you can use the chat function so that we can have a little chat. There we go. Someone's typing. Hurrah. Thank you. Okay, that is great news. And I really want you all to share and talk and contribute as we're going along. I'll read out the messages as we're going through. And please do remember that the session is being recorded. So don't say anything that you don't want to be read out loud, or you could just type happy to share, but don't read it out loud. So please feel free to do that as well. So I guess we should get started with today's workshop. Hello, Eddie. Hi, Thanga. Hi, Cameron. Hi, Holly. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. So as I said, my name is Danny Haig. I'm the principal business psychologist of DH Consulting. And today we are talking about one of the most important topics I think we can ever learn about, and that is financial well-being. When I started researching this many years ago, it completely transformed my life. It completely transformed my relationship with money, my attitude towards money, my financial behaviors. And that's why I'm so happy to talk about it with anybody who will listen. So I hope you find it as useful. And even if you think, actually, I don't need to know this, there might be people, friends, family who will also benefit from learning about financial well-being. Pop your questions in the chat function and I'll answer them. Share anything, maybe a TED talk, a book, whatever you think is useful. So you might be thinking, why on earth is a business psychologist talking to me about finances? Well, I can guarantee I will not be advising you on your stock portfolio, on any asset management, but I will be talking to you about how your individual psychology has an impact on every single financial decision that you make, whether you consider it to be good or to be bad. Now, as I'm sure we all know, money is a huge part of our lives, and it has an impact on pretty much every area of our life, our career choices, our relationships, our education, our families, all sorts of different things. Every single thing, whether we like it or not, is in one way or another impacted by money. And interestingly, AXA, the big insurance multinational, they found recently that 5% of adults admit to having taken time off work in the past 12 months as a result of money worries in the UK. 5% of individuals taking time off because of money worries. And they found that 70% say that they've spent time at work worrying about their finances as well. This is a huge area of our lives, and it's intrinsically linked with our mental well-being. Now, we also have statistics from CIPD, it's 2017, so I can't even imagine what the statistics are now, that said that a quarter of employees had money worries to such an impact that it impacted their ability to do their job. So that was 2017. Right now, with the economy the way this is, I can't even imagine the stress and worry that is rippled across probably the globe right now at this point. So it really is an ideal time for us to be thinking about our personal financial well-being and making steps to improve it or hone it. However, if you're not quite there yet, now is not the time to beat yourself up. It's more about using the time to recognize how quickly our financial well-being can be completely impacted by things outside of our control, and to work out how we can be prepared for the future. So that's what today's talk is really about, discovering what financial well-being is and how do we achieve our personal sense of financial well-being. Because what you might not know is that we all have an attitude towards money, and that is a learned behavior. And that learned behavior dictates our relationship with money and our attitude towards it. So now let's move into making better decisions. And hopefully this workshop will make you feel in control of your personal finances and certainly give you a route to taking control of your personal finances and the confidence and resources to set and achieve financial goals that you can enjoy financial freedom in the present and in the future. So let's kick off with a poll. And remember, the polls are anonymous. Let me see if I can send it. No, Holly, would you mind sending the poll live for me now? Lovely Holly from Giants is helping us out with the poll. There we go. Fantastic. So I'd like you to have a think. Do you ever feel that your finances impact your mental health? Yes, no, not sure. Do you ever? And as I said, these are completely anonymous, so you can be as honest as you feel comfortable to be. So far, we've got 11 responses coming in thick and fast. Thank you so much for sending this through. Well, in the UK, 20.3 million people don't feel confident about managing their money. 11.5 million people have less than £100 in savings, and nearly 9 million of us are in serious debt, and only a third receive any help. Money continues to cause the most worries for the majority of people. 26% of UK employees are worrying about money on an ongoing basis. That far outweighs worries about career, health, and relationships. So it's interesting that money continues to be the largest source of stress for the majority of us in our lives. And now we've just got the poll. We've got 13 responses. And 76% of you have said that money worries have impacted your health. So I'm not surprised at hearing that, because that aligns with the statistics that it is the largest worry for most of us. How much someone earns and where they live and what kind of industry they work in actually makes very little difference to how financially healthy someone is. You might be shocked to hear that. However, certain groups, women, employees from Black ethnic backgrounds, are left far more vulnerable to poor financial well-being. A third of C-suite executives and 30% of managers have poor financial well-being. Surprisingly, those that earn 10 to 30k a year have almost the same level of financial worries as those earning over 90k. Poor financial well-being is not about income or seniority. And unsurprisingly, poor mental health and poor financial health continue to go hand in hand. But I don't want us to be thinking about these statistics right now, because, well, I do, because I want us to be talking about, that's why we're talking about this topic right now. We never talk about these things. Financial well-being, finances are not a part of our education. So where do we develop our sense of financial well-being from? Where do we become educated? So thank you so much for sharing in that poll now. But now I'd like you to have a think about, what is this financial well-being that we're talking about? So it doesn't matter what your income is. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter your education. What is financial well-being? Can you put some ideas in the chat? What do you think financial well-being is? How would you describe it? Have you ever thought about it before? So what are we really talking about when we say financial well-being? Okay, so thank you so much. So we've got the first idea in, which is being set up for retirement. Okay, any more? Does anyone agree with that? Does anyone disagree with that? What do you think financial well-being is? Okay, so you got some people agree. Financial discipline. Okay, putting money aside for a rainy day. All right. Anything else? A good handle on your finances, having enough money to cover your output. Okay. Well, interestingly, financial well-being has really only been researched and thought about quite recently. And I was really fortunate enough when I was at UCL to work with a professor called Adrian Furnham, and he very much led the kind of the way looking at research into financial well-being. And from his research, and he interviewed hundreds of thousands of people, filled out data to let us know what is financial well-being. Well, there's this psychological element to financial health. And it's not about credit scores and savings. It's actually about feeling in control of your personal finances and having the confidence and resources to set and achieve financial goals for both now and the future. So, as I said, this huge amount of research went in, years and years and years of data gathering from people around the globe to understand what financial was. And there were some surprising results. So you can see on the screen that financial well-being is made up of 4 elements, 2 components in the present, 2 components in the future. So first and foremost, the most important element of financial well-being, actually the foundation and cornerstone, is a sense of security in the present. So in the top left-hand corner, this is feeling like you can manage your finances and not have your finances manage you. You cover your expenses. You can pay your bills on time. You don't worry about getting by on a daily basis. That is the absolute foundation of a sense of financial well-being. Then we have security in the future. So this is your ability to absorb a financial shock. So, for example, losing a job, or your I don't know, something happening at home, your boiler breaking, or a car emergency. You will be okay if that happened. The Money Advice Service estimates that 8.3 million in the UK are over indebted, and that 22% of UK adults have less than £100 in savings. This makes them highly vulnerable to a financial shock, such as losing a job or an unexpected bill coming through. So these are the 2 things: safety first and foremost, safety in the present and safety in the future. And then the second 2 elements of financial well-being are freedom of choice. So freedom of choice in the present. That means you can have some wants and not just needs on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you can go for that dinner, or you can get yourself a coffee, or buy yourself something, or be generous with your family and friends, or whatever it might be. You have that choice to enjoy finances, your money. And then freedom of choice in the future. Now, that's a formal or an informal plan to meet your personal goals. So that could be to buy a car, pay off some debt, perhaps buy a house, retirement, I don't know, buy Necker Island, whatever the hell it is. Oh, sorry, whatever it is for you as an individual. So there are these 4 key areas. So in the present and in the future: security in the present, security in the future, freedom of choice now, freedom of choice in the future. So all of these things are deeply personal. And what you can see is that they don't apply to income or net worth. So you could earn a small salary, for example, and be perfectly happy to live within your means. You don't need luxury, I don't know, business class flights. You don't want that in your life. You're very happy with what you have and living within your means and saving money and feel very financially well. You could be earning £1 million a year, have 4 children at boarding school, a partner with a penchant for Cartier, and be completely out of control of your finances. So your income is irrelevant for financial well-being. Financial well-being is about being in control, more than anything. It is a psychological thing. And psychology, remember, is not just what happens here. Your psychology is your behavior. Psychology is the study of human behavior, not human thoughts, human behavior. But our thoughts dictate our behavior. So that's how we can see that, like, psychologically, finances are really a very psychological thing. Let me know if you've got any questions about that. And just finally, one more time, of course, when we feel out of control, we feel a huge element of distress. So 58% of the UK feel like they have difficulty managing their finances, 30% feel they make uninformed decisions, and 19% are losing sleep over money. So it is an important topic. It's really important that we learn about this, and we never do. Other than this session today, I guess most people will not have heard about financial well-being before, let alone learned about it. So let's have a little game called Myth and Fact. Let's see what we feel about financial well-being. So we've only got 30 minutes left, so we'll do just a couple of these. Okay, so question 1. Families generally talk about money in helpful ways. Myth or fact? Okay, we've got some answers coming in thick and fast. Okay. Families generally talk about money in helpful ways. Myth or fact? Well, we have a resounding myth answer. And actually, okay, one fact. But generally speaking, families do not talk about money in helpful ways. It generally is a myth. Because if you think about generationally, when we learn about money, people develop financial personalities, and they pass through families, and we teach each other and our families how to respond to money, because we don't really get taught much about money. You have to do it on your own. You have to actively go out and learn about the world of money. It's incredibly emotive. It can seem very complex. And where do you find and access all the money? All the information about money. And so therefore, people generally give very emotive and anecdotal information about money. Also, cultures have very different responses and attitudes towards money. I wonder if anyone can share any anecdotes or experiences they've ever had. So I've been having to undo the narrative that I've been taught. So my parents have very different attitudes towards money. And when I grew up, my mum was always very much like, oh, well, money's there to be enjoyed. Don't worry about a rainy day. Don't worry about saving. You've got to treat yourself. Oh, more money will come. Don't worry about it. And a very laissez-faire attitude towards money. And I had to, I spent many years of my young adult life with that attitude, realizing that actually I can't afford to be that laissez-faire. I really need to be thinking about the future. And so it made a huge difference to me. So there are examples of how actually we are taught other people's narratives from our families around money. There's normally one person who controls money, you're afraid to get it wrong. Okay. Okay, interesting. You must spend to save is a wise attitude. Yeah, absolutely. So we all have these different attitudes towards money. It's interesting that we've already started noticing that with the people around us. Okay, so what about this then? Struggling households mismanage finances. Myth or fact? Okay, interesting. So someone's just said in their culture, they emphasize the importance of financial independence at a very early stage in children's development. That's very interesting. And I can imagine positive, I suppose, depending upon how it's done. Right. Okay. So back to the question. Struggling households mismanage finances. So most people are myth, fact, 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 myth. Okay. Well, actually, evidence tells us that this is mostly a myth. Actually, many struggling households are very astute and excellent at managing their money, but it's the situation that makes things really difficult. So I'll just give you a quick example, just a way of thinking about this. So imagine you have a single parent who has their child has, I don't know, two, three children, whatever, and they are working part time to ensure they can earn some money, and but they're trying to look after their children as well. They might not be particularly highly skilled, and so they're in a low paid role. They then are in their car and they're trying to take their children to school in the morning. The car breaks down because they can't afford a new, brand new model, and the car is old and it's broken down. That person, because they have a low income job, they can't access a good credit card or something that can help them in order to pay for the car. But they need to pay for the car in order to get to work, in order to drop their children at school, in order for their life to function. But because of the situation they're in, people don't lend money freely to people who earn less money. So perhaps they go to a loan shark or a payday loan. And they go to a payday loan, which is huge interest rates, but they have to get to work in order to earn a living. They have to get their children to school as a parent. So what do they do in that situation? You can see how sometimes situations aren't always as black and white. And actually, mostly people in very low income households and struggling households actually just don't have the opportunities that other people have with higher incomes. And therefore, the opportunities aren't there to support them. So you can actually see that not everyone has the same options in life. And actually, struggling households generally are very, very astute. It's just they don't necessarily have that control because there's so many things that are beyond their options and are beyond their take. So that is often a big misconception around people in much, much lower income households and struggling households. It's not actually about that. And one thing I'd like you to think about, but I'm going to move on because I don't want to, I want to get to some juicy parts of psychology, which is, does money make you happy? A myth or fact? I wonder, does money make you happy? An interesting question. And I know often we morally think, no, money doesn't make us happy. And interestingly, I don't know if anyone's ever thought about this before. Um, in movies, people people who are wealthy and have money are always the baddie. They're generally never the goodie. And actually, like think about the Titanic, the people who are below deck are the happiest ones who enjoy and understand life, but the people above deck are horrible and they don't enjoy life really. And movies have this huge impact on us. Films are very, very, very have always had ethical kind of black and white thinking, and that also tells us a lot, and those narratives can really build up in us whereby you think, oh, I daren't say that I want to have money or money makes me happy because is that an unethical thing to say? And it's really interesting how TV and movies and the stories that we read have these underlying narratives around whether money does make you happy or not. So it's something to listen out for. But where does our personal financial well-being come from? And I wonder, how satisfied are you with your personal narrative? Well, this is a really useful model whereby you can see, if we start on the left and we're working our way over to the right, this is how we create our financial well-being. And this is why we have an individual basis, and our individual backgrounds and experiences all impacts the way that we perceive money. So between knowledge gained and actions made, which is generally how we think about life, think about how you have maybe you smoke, but you know it's bad for your health, but you don't stop. So you've got this knowledge, but your behavior hasn't changed. So you know that you need to save money, but you still spend more than you have. Why do we have knowledge but not act on it? Why do we know we need to do things but don't do it? Well, there's a huge number of factors that determine our financial well-being. So let's start with our backgrounds and our upbringing. So our parents deeply inform us about navigating our finances, behaviors, skills, cultural norms, all of these things about money. And we generally gather most of our information about money informally, which is really interesting. Most of what we know about money is informally gathered. And spouses, families, friends all start to shape the way we perceive money. Now, these can be both good and bad lessons. You know, they're not always good. Just because that's what you've been taught, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's wrong. But There are different ways that we taught about money growing up. So that's part of our socioeconomic background and our environment, what surrounds you in your family, in your community, that dictates and tells you about money, what you think about money. Are you scared of money? Are you not scared of money? Is it really emotional? Is it used as a weapon? Is it something to be feared? Is it something to be held on to? All of these attitudes are generally formed in our childhoods and our upbringing from our parents or our community or whoever's raising us. And then we have our individual differences as well. So we have our own personalities. So if we move into the middle now, how you tend to think and feel and act about things also has an impact on this. So you might be a really I don't know, like say, for example, you could have really high self esteem, strong self belief, a great belief in persistent personality, very gritty. And that will have an impact as well on your narratives that you've picked up along the way and how you act them out. Then there's also like the values that you have on money. What's valuable to you? What is your attitude towards money? Is money valuable? Is it not? What do you value in life? Then we have decision contexts, how we perceive making decisions at certain times. So humans are actually generally experiential learning, and just in time learning is very, very impactful. So, for example, when it comes to money, let's say you, I don't know, you need to get a loan immediately, or you need to pay for something quick sticks. You've never had a credit card before. You're going to learn more about APRs and credit cards and repayments in that like 2 days or however long it is that you've got to make that decision than you would just generally on a day-to-day basis. There's normally a very, very kind of experiential element to learning, generally about most things in life, but definitely about financial as well. And non-immediate applicable learning tends to kind of go by the wayside when it comes to humans and the way that we absorb information. So we've got our backgrounds and our upbringings, those narratives there from our family and our community and the people that we spend time with. Then our own personalities and attitudes, how we think and feel, our decision context. So, what are we learning about money? Is it really immediately important or is it not really important at all? And then knowledge and skills. So, what we know is so important, but knowing how to apply it, if you have a sense of self efficacy and application of knowledge, is also really important because knowledge doesn't change behaviors. Think about how many lottery winners who have Coots advisors, on speed dial, trying to make them, never have to work again and support them. And they blow through millions and millions of pounds in a few short years. Or what about the people who know that, I don't know, like their diet, they're on the cusp of diabetes, but they don't change. So basically, the point is knowing something is different to applying it. So your knowledge and skills are really important as well. So knowing how to make good and wise decisions confidently is really important. And then the opportunities. What available opportunities are there to you financially? And then you can see how all of this leads into what you actually do. So you might think that time that you make that financial decision and you think that, it's whatever it is, you might not even think much about it. There is a lot of background that has gone in to you making that individual choice. And that's why it's so complex. And that's why it's so hard to break habits and change things because of the way that our brains have been shaped, the knowledge that we have, who we are as people. So we all have a personal attitude towards money, and it's been created over time from many different various situations in our lives. But of course, where we are in life also makes a difference, and that also shapes our attitudes. When we're leaving school, go to university, or in our first jobs, we're probably not thinking about our retirement fund. I know I certainly didn't. And it's only because my accountant badgers me to do it that I even think about it now. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be young forever, or youngish. But sadly, it's something that we have to think about. And so most of us, we're not thinking about that then. We're not thinking we want to enjoy our money and save, or maybe then start saving for a house or paying off a credit card or our student loans or whatever the hell it is. Oh my goodness, why am I saying that so much? I'm so sorry. But we know that people's attitudes towards income, savings and spendings, it changes over the course of our lives, depending on what our intentions and our motives are. So you can see how this is a general graph of income and expenditure. So white line is income, the black line is spending, expenditure, and it fluctuates throughout our time. And ideally, we need to be planning for these for at a young age. But as I said, who really is thinking about that? But you can see how also where we are in our life, the decisions we want to make also has an impact on our financial well-being. And I could talk to you about this for ages and ages and ages, but sadly, we don't have a huge amount of time. So let's look at financial well-being defined. So as we've seen in the graph, like absolutely everything in our lives over time, it will fluctuate. However, having financial well-being is about having the tools and the confidence to control and deal with those financial fluctuations. So it is the dynamic relationship of one's economic resources as they impact the state of physical and emotional and social well-being. So fantastic. We now know the definition. Why are we talking about this? Well, one of the reasons why we're talking about it right now is because generally in society, we don't talk about money very much. But interestingly, when I deliver this workshop, and it's one of my favorites, and I must have delivered it a million times, massive exaggeration, definitely not a million, but many hundreds of times. And obviously, work with multicultural and international organizations, and hearing different cultural backgrounds and ideas about money is so fascinating, I think. But one reason why we might be bad at finances, particularly in the UK, I'm not particularly astutely, I've never lived anywhere else, so I don't know otherwise. But one of the reasons why is culture. And rather hilariously, he did this piece of research and the results came out and said that people were 7 times more likely to tell a stranger details of their sex life than their salary. So I wonder, which topic would you be happy to disclose and discuss your salary with a stranger? Or would you even be happy to discuss your financial situation with a family member or a friend? How would you feel about that? If I said, right, you're going to have to call up every member in your family and let them know what your financial situation is right now, how would you feel about that? Would you find it uncomfortable? Even organizations tell you not to tell your colleague what you earn. Absolutely. We are told to be so discreet and don't tell anyone, so suspicious. So I wonder, would anyone be comfortable with sharing their financial situation? Would you be happy to tell everyone? Is that yes, you're comfortable, or yes, you're uncomfortable? Comfortable. Well, what about if I told you that in Norway, your tax return is a public document? So anybody can access your finance, know what taxes you're paying and what your financial situation is. And you can, that's actually, I think it might be also the case in Sweden, perhaps, but definitely in Norway. So in Norway, everyone knows what everyone earns and what tax they're paying. It's completely free, public document for everyone to know. Yeah, it's fascinating. So you can see how cultures have different attitudes towards money. I mean, when I talk about money with my family, who I'm very close with, I still feel very uncomfortable discussing it. It just feels very, I don't know, just unusual. So let's talk about now, and I want you to think about yourselves. I'm going to go through something that's really interesting. I want you to walk away from this session knowing more about yourself and your financial attitude towards money. So most of our financial attitudes comes from something called our money script. So we have loads of scripts inside our heads, lots of different narratives. They're also known as heuristics. They're known as biases. They're known as narratives. And they're little stories that we've all created in our lives, in our minds over time that tell us kind of the way that we see life, the way we see ourselves in the world, and how we think the world functions. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Oh, gosh. Excuse me. Goodness me. And so we have these money scripts. They're unconscious beliefs about money, and they're rooted in experience, and they influence our financial health. So taking control by knowing our scripts can really impact our budgeting, our planning, our spending, and all of those things. So they're learned in childhood. They're often just partial truths, and they pass down from generation to generation, and they are typically unconscious and highly responsible for our financial outcomes. And actually, some researchers have carried out research and uncovered links to different financial narratives and scripts and people's financial success. So how much how much money, how much debt do they have? Do they live within their means? All of the when do they retire, their retirements, all of that kind of stuff can actually be led back to these narratives. And the importance just cannot be overstated. And so they're associated with income, net worth, credit card and other debt, financial behavior, and other aspects of our financial health. So instead of saying don't let the emotions get in the way when it comes to our finances, I think the emotions are there. We need to recognize what they are and then take actions to combat them. And that's very much the attitude that's taken when it comes to that. So I'm going to talk through these money scripts with you now. And I want you to have a think about these different questions. So I get a kick out of managing my money. I'm very generous with the people I love. I dither a lot. Take a screenshot if you want, because I want to make sure that we talk through each of these scripts with you. But this is quite a useful kind of like little tool of questions to be asking yourself. So if you want to take a screenshot, photo with your frame, a photo with your phone, and I will move on to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is what the various money scripts that we know exist. So from all of that research that Adrian Furnham at UCL carried out, where he was asking hundreds of thousands of people around the globe about their attitudes towards money. And basically the surroundings that you've had and the surroundings and environment and the generational narrative that you have will generally fall into one of these 6 personalities. And I'm going to talk through them quickly. And I want you to have a think about which one of these makes you feel like, yes, this feels like me. Normally, most people say, actually, I'm a mixture. And I can see where my mixture is. So I wonder if you can see where your mixture is as well. So in the top left-hand corner, we have the anxious investor. Now, the anxious investor tends to come from a wealthy background. They tend to like risk, they trade often, and they are prone to losses. But they are incredibly overconfident. They're overconfident and they make bad decisions. Now, interestingly, all of these personalities are actually dictated and come from a place of fear. So anxiety, the anxiety for the anxious investor is like missing out on something. They're anxious, so they make lots of decisions. They're constantly doing things. And so they like risk and they trade often because they're worried that they're going to miss out. But they're actually prone to losses. So not just like with markets, for example, with houses, perhaps, they buy high and sell low. They love risk and they would rather make an action than not make an action. So even though something might be not going very well financially, instead of sitting and waiting it out and seeing what might happen, they would rather just act on it than just leave it be. So despite this overconfidence, they're prone to be beaten by the market. So they overtrade when it comes to money, and they have an action bias, which means that they have a tendency to do things rather than just sit and wait things out. So if this is you, then it's about setting yourself boundaries, like how much can you afford in order to sit out an investment, whatever it might be. But that's the anxious investor. So we have that person up there making lots of bad financial decisions and very often. And it's really because they have this action bias. So then we have the hoarder. Now, the hoarder tends to come from a background with less financial stability, and money becomes a security for them. And they hate risk. Risk is they're so risk averse when it comes to finances, and they abhor risk. So they stockpile money. And they feel that it's better. These are the kind of people that, like, for example, my grandma, keeping cash under the mattress, keeping money as close to you as humanly possible, holding on to funds. So these kind of people, money is a security for them, and they stockpile. But actually, and I remember actually there's a story of this 94-year-old chap that we interviewed. And even at 94 years old, his attitude when his pension came in every week was save half, spend half. Even at 94 years old, he still had that attitude. So not even enjoying his own money or enjoying what he had, it was save half and spend half. And he had this huge stockpile of cash that he just never used for anything. And actually, it would have been better invested. It would have been maybe even better spent. But a good financial advisor will help you work out how to make that money work for you. Then we have the social value spender. So these people tend to spend on things in order to impress other people. It can be both men and women. Does shopping make you really happy? Do you often buy your loved ones presents just because? Do you blow the budget at Christmas and birthdays? Well, you could be a social value spender. And the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute defines someone who purchases either for themselves or others. These people do it to boost their self-esteem. I definitely used to be this person. I'd buying gifts for other people before I was paying my bills when I was younger. Like, it was ridiculous. So definitely something that I had to come. So is your financial spending attached to your self-esteem? So obviously that's something that needs to be worked on. Then we have the cash flasher. So they love to be seen as the big spender. They are a close cousin to the social value spender, but slightly different. And they like to be seen as very generous. They'll be announcing, I'll get the bill and I'll do this. And they think that, well, they use money to make people think more highly of them. Much more likely to be waving the checkbooks around, spending money on things they could definitely do without, whether it's, I don't know, flashy cars, new club memberships, whatever it is. And there's a desire to be admired there. Money means respect for them. But sadly, many of the cash splashers, they will run out of money because, splashing the cash is more important than saving and thinking about the future. So having experiences rather than spending money is incredibly invaluable for building value and connections. Make your friends dinner instead of taking them out. And then finally, the ostrich doesn't do anything with their money. They also, it's almost like a fear. So it's a fear of not knowing what's going on, so they just head in the sand, don't know anything. But these people, they would rather put their head in the sand than organize their finances. And piles of posts will be unopened, no idea what's going on in the bank. Older ostrich birds, they might have money, but consistently fail to make long-term investment decisions. And again, anxiety drives this behavior. So to put one simple task in, like save for something nice, put money away, build up. But I've just realized I've missed out the Fitbit financier. So the Fitbit financier, also anxiety led. The Fitbit financier is someone who is constantly analyzing their money, never stops, obsessed with analyzing and tracking all spending, looking at your cards every day. So we've got the ostrich who doesn't ever look at your bank statements or anything. And then you've got the Fitbit financier who can't stop. It's once a day, it's many times a day. It's obsessively, worrying and looking at and observing money and working out what's going on. So you can see, I wonder if these resonate with you, or you could definitely think, I can see that in someone I know. Well, we have a poll now, and it's multiple choice. So please do let us know. And again, it's completely anonymous, but just see which of these do you recognize within yourself. Do you see any of these narratives? And it's multiple choice, so you can put a couple in if you recognize a few. So if you pop your votes in now, you can see where they are. Perhaps it's just one, perhaps a couple. But it's just really interesting to learn about these different attitudes, and you can see how they dictate pretty much everything that you do, and you might not even realize that it's there. Has anyone got any thoughts on these financial narratives and understanding how they could be impacting their lives? Or perhaps you can see it in someone else massively and you think, gosh, yes, that's so and so, that's why they do what they're doing. It can be a really difficult topic to talk about, financial well-being. Sometimes it can feel really uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to talking about things. But also, money is really emotive. Money is a huge part of our lives, and it has this massive emotional weight to it, which makes it really tricky to talk about sometimes. Okay, so we have some clear clear responses here with the Fitbit financier and the social value spender coming in at 35% and 29%. The ostrich is not far behind. Okay, so as they're coming through, I want to talk through some really quick tips, and I'm happy to send these through to Holly to send through to people. I wanted to talk about raising awareness to financial well-being today, because it's not something that we talk about that hardly ever. It's obviously something that weighs on many people's mind. I think we're at 70-something% of people are impacted by their mental health. Their health is impacted by finances. So it's really important for us to start to understand, where does that all come from? So I've got all of these tips and things that, oh, I'm clicking on the wrong slide. So we've got all of these different ways that we can start to manage our personal finances. And a lot of it comes down to psychology. So, for example, social comparison is such a problem. And when I'm looking at these statistics here, and we've got 31% being social value spenders, you can see how actually social comparison is such a huge problem, especially in the world of social media, which I personally think should be banned. It is the devil's work, and it isn't real, but it impacts us so much when it comes to things like social value spending. And what else have we got here? The cash flash is a bit smaller, but we've got 10% there. So you can see how, for me, cash flash stands out because it's cultural. It's an example when I ask you out for lunch or dinner and have on, which is not a case for a bit. No, this is a bit different. So this is where someone is, they're very much like, oh, I'm going to pay for everyone today. And it's not a discreet decision. It's not about that. It's kind of like an overt announcement. They're at a charity auction. They're buying everything up. They're telling everyone about how wealthy they are. Everyone know how, it's almost like buying friendships, I suppose, by making people respect you. They associate money and wealth. So I think that's, I think that's probably more along the lines of what we're looking at, but it is interesting. Culture is really important. The most important thing we can ever ask ourselves when it comes to our finances, do I spend more than I earn? That is the first question we must always ask ourselves when it comes to our money. Do I spend more than I earn? Why is that? If that's the question, if the answer is, yes, then a behavior has to change. You have to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? And start to understand these narratives that we have within ourselves. Like, do I associate success with spending money? Do I, overbuy gifts? So I remember talking about this with Giant many years ago, this topic, and I was talking to some of the people there, and we were discussing how I told them how I actually have to now, because I am such a social value spender, I have to really work on not overextending myself for buying gifts for other people in my family and whatever. And I have to give myself limits and budgets, and I have to work on that really hard. It's much better now. Many years later, things have changed and I've got a grip of it, but it can really change things. So I would rather buy gifts for other people than pay my bills. And it was because I understood that I was a social value spender, and I went, whoa, I've got to do something about this now. And it made a big difference. And so leaning into these narratives and being honest with ourselves and saying, actually, do you know what? My friends are still going to love me if I spend £100 on them or £20 on them. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't give me value. But anyway, yes, I know we're running over time. I would love to talk to you more and more about these different areas. But there's so many different things that we can do. And I strongly recommend a book to kick everyone off if you're interested in learning more, which is called The Psychology of Money. Now, I read this book years ago, but it's suddenly come on the best reading book list again. Where on earth is it? And it's really, really brilliant. And I've recommended it to so many people in my life, and they've all loved it. It's such a good start to understanding money and making different actions and behaviors to enhance your, here it is. Here it is. The Psychology of Money. Really recommend it if you haven't read it already. As I said, it's in the top reading list at the moment in the UK. So definitely recommend getting this if you want to learn more and understand more about psychology. And it takes that emotional weight out of it. And yes, we all have the access to skills and things that we can do to make things differently moving forward when it comes to our finances. But most importantly, it's about taking time in your life to learn about what we can do differently and how to start doing it differently as well. And I think taking time like today is one of the best investments that you can do into your financial well-being, which is learning and saying, okay, now I know why I do what I do. Because when you know why you do what you do, that is when you can start to make positive changes. So I hope that you found this informative and you learned more about yourself and your financial narratives and your well-being. Yes, I hope that it makes a difference for you and it makes a change moving forward, because it certainly made a huge impact on my life. I mean, I cannot actually exaggerate how much it transformed my life, leaning into my financial narratives and learning why I do what I do so that I can make a change moving forward and become empowered with the financial choices and decisions that I make. So I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you take this with you, learn, think, and make your life become a reality. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I'd really like to hopefully see you again at one of the next meetings that we have and one of our next sessions with Giant. So fantastic. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.